Um, I'm going to give you all the opportunity to walk out of the room. But first, I'll introduce myself, and then I'll explain why. So I'm Szrama, CEO of Centarro. We're the company that maintains Drupal Commerce, and that's basically core module set and module ecosystem. And I set a goal for myself after DrupalCon Atlanta to sell my first site template by DrupalCon Vienna. And in May, by the time I actually prepared this session and proposed it, we had a yes, and that turned into a no. So I actually have not sold my first site template, and this session will be explaining about what I did and how it didn't work. So that as you're thinking about whether or not to invest in developing site templates yourself, whether you're thinking about how to sell them or how to enable others to sell them, hopefully you can at least learn from my failure. So that's the mea culpa. If the session is no longer interesting to you, zero hard feelings if you want to find something else. But for those who remain, what is a site template? I'm guessing you're generally aware if you're sitting in this room. But just to recap, at DrupalCon Atlanta, Dries introduced the concept of site templates as a fast way to start using Drupal for a specific purpose. So it's Drupal CMS paired with a front-end theme, maybe a back-end theme, recipes that provide functionality, default content that shows exactly how it's meant to be used. And this is good, right, because people don't buy flexible software. Now, nobody goes to the Lego store, my kids sure don't, to buy the classic box of Legos. They go to buy the new Avengers set or the new Harry Potter set. That would be my wife, actually. If it's me, I don't even know, I'd probably some Hobbit or Lord of the Rings set. And that's what the template was supposed to be, that, right? The packaged version of Drupal that gets you up and running quickly. It received further definition through this RFC ticket, if you're curious to see what the Drupal CMS team is thinking about how to define a site template. Because even what constitutes a site template was still muddy after DrupalCon Atlanta. We, of course, called Commerce Kickstart a site template because I thought it fit the bill, but then it kind of got loaded with the idea of canvas readiness or experience builder readiness, which our theme is not. And then, of course, you saw on Tuesday, Dries introduced Byte, which is a site template that ships with Drupal CMS 2.0 and uses the Mercury theme system to let you build a SaaS landing page out of the box. And that's pretty interesting, and we actually can begin to develop that further. You can imagine, for example, a step during installation where you literally just click a Stripe Connect button, and instead of having to build your price comparison chart in Drupal, it just pulls it right from your Stripe account and gets it right there on your front page of your website. And that site template can be then that accelerating tool for the company that needs that. Now, your guess is as good as mine how many SaaS companies are out there looking for a full-blown CMS to sell their software that don't know how to use the Stripe widget themselves. We'll find out. So it's very speculative still, but we want the idea to succeed if this is the direction the community is headed, and so we went all in for DrupalCon Atlanta. And we converted what was the largest, oldest Drupal distribution, Commerce Kickstart, into a site template, which meant no more installation profile, no more custom modules loaded into the thing, for us, no custom themes that were just proprietary to the distro. We have the Belgrade theme, but it's open source. We use Jan on the back end. And then all of the configuration, all of the default content is coming from recipes. Which, if you aren't aware, recipes are a tool to apply configuration changes and install content into your site, but you cannot remove it. So just bear that in mind. If you're playing around with recipes, you don't want to apply a recipe to a production website. And that the nature of recipes even gives us some pause for where it fits in the commerce ecosystem, because it's actually kind of hard to uninstall Drupal Commerce and various other like multi-module ecosystems within Drupal. And so, it makes it hard for us to know who are we selling this to and how are we selling it, and hence the genesis of this talk. But we converted this to a site template. All of our recipes are on Drupal.org. The Belgrade theme is fantastic, and Ivan, our maintainer, did a lot of work even in the run-up to Vienna that I'm chagrined I don't have a screenshot for, but the whole checkout experience now is basically looks like Shopify with a variety of color configuration, form element configuration options, stripping down the page template just so it's a very focused, modern checkout experience. So well worth checking out. But in our case, all of this code is just open source projects on Drupal.org. So there's nothing proprietary about our site template. That's important, but I'll put a pin in it for now. So I did want to answer the why for selling site templates. I think it's maybe obvious why we thought to create site templates. It is just a modernized version of the install profile that became the distribution and now is the template. A nice thing about it too is that it actually kind of disclaims responsibility on the part of the site template maintainer to provide an upgrade path. Basically, once you install my template and you've applied these recipes, there is no upgrade path. You just have the product as it was at the time, and all of the updates and upgrades from there on out are just a standard composer up, and you get the code, and hopefully nothing breaks. In a perfect world, what you're shipping, will not be brittle to the point that kind of a just standard Drupal upgrade process will matter. But it does change what you can do inside the template versus what we could do inside distributions. So if you changed, say, the way a view works in your template from one version to the next, well, all of your existing users will not get that upgraded view. Whereas with the distribution, I could have an update hook that swapped that out and so on and so forth. So it's a bit of a different beast, but it's a different purpose too. It's a starting point, not a sort of an on-premises SaaS product you're buying from me that I just happen to deliver through Composer. So we're selling site templates because solutions to specific problems sell better than abstract ideas. You don't go to a customer and offer them a flexibility. I just want to sell you flexibility. And anytime that I've tried to sell flexibility, I've lost the opportunity to the person who said, I've got Rails, and you can see exactly where it's going to take you. So in a sense, it's a better sales strategy for a Drupal site. If all I'm trying to sell is a site that does a thing, and not end up in that sales conversation saying, what do you want to happen with this? What do you think is important to you? Now they're coming to us for us to tell them what's important to them. The second, of course, is that the target market expects support. If they're paying money for a product thing, they expect you as the vendor to support it, which means there must be some kind of a funding model. So that's why we should pursue some sort of a financial strategy behind the site template. And lastly, helping someone start makes us the obvious choice for them to reach out to when they want to grow. And so that last, why was the primary thing that motivated us as the company behind Drupal Commerce. We want to find people who maybe are just starting out today, but in 2, 3, 4 years are looking for a development partner to now take them to the next level. And our longest running customer is MatSmart in Sweden. That's with one T, so matsmart.se or Motatos in Germany and various other markets. And they started in 2012 using Commerce Kickstart to develop an online grocery store. They developed it themselves, they adapted it over time, and eventually we became their development agency of record. Around 2016 was when we got involved, and the first engagement was just performance and scalability. It had a successful business for 4 years, they'd grown to some millions in revenue. Things were starting to slow down. We were the choice, of course, to make sure the lights stayed on, and then it was a question of, well, what more can you do for us? And that turned into, wow, can you help us fully decouple this, expand to new markets, convert to Drupal 9, 10, 11, blah, blah, blah. And it's been a fantastic relationship for 9 on 10 years. So that's what I'm thinking as the business owner. Yeah, I'd love to reproduce that. And it's worth me investing a lot of my team's time and effort today to make that future happen. And I actually had a question before this session about how much it cost us, how much do we have to invest to get to the point where I could even present a proposal to somebody. And I'd say we spent, some months of developer effort to get there. Obviously, Kickstart has existed for a while, but just the recipeization of it, that was probably 2 to 3 weeks of development, concept development testing, The theme itself was another good couple of weeks, along with the default content migration, blah, blah, blah. So it's not cheap. You must be prepared to invest thousands of dollars to make this happen. And if you have anything better to do with your time, you might consider doing something else. But if you want to do a site template, let me tell you how I could not. Okay, so this question of how, of course, can mean different things. It could mean, just how do I actually get this thing for sale on the internet? Which the answer today is you must do it yourself. Go look at drupyard.com for a good example. There is no marketplace on Drupal.org where you can list a template for sale and expect someone to handle the transaction, take their cut, distribute the files for you, etc. How do you protect your intellectual property when you're distributing this entire product to your customers' code? And of course, the answer there is, well, good luck. If you're worried about that, this may not be the paradigm for you. But I actually discovered last night, having a drink with Niels from Private Packages, that Private Packages actually has an API for granting people as a vendor access to a package in a private repository that you can revoke access from in the future. So to the extent your site template has custom modules or custom themes that you don't want to distribute in the wild, that's a really compelling option, and their price point was so low that I'm going to be converting my client projects over to Private Packages when I get home. So highly recommend looking into that as well. But the idea there would be people can still, bootleg your product from the point they bought it. They just would be cut off from future improvements. But definitely worth looking into, because then you don't have to build all of that, management and distribution stuff yourself. The only thing you're then responsible for is how do I get somebody's name, email address, and then plug them into my private packages, which could be manual to start, or could be, I'm sure, fairly easily scripted. And then finally, this is what I actually meant by the session title: how do you convince somebody to buy it? And our bet was that we could basically sidestep the first two questions by choosing a model that didn't depend on them. So like I said, everything about our site template is on Drupal.org. So I'm not worried about protecting my intellectual property. Additionally, I'm not really worried about the sale. I just was going to do the sale manually with just a simple DocuSign. When you're ready, click here, sign the dotted line. And then I wanted to just offer a ridiculous value. Because, of course, I guess by show of hands, are we all like Drupal agency, more or less? Site developers, service providers, okay. We intuitively understand that a good site template may save you, your development team, days of effort. Probably not weeks, but at least days, setting up a new project. And so if you could shortcut that, so I'm not having to add 5 days to my proposal, I just add one line item for the site template I'm going to build their site on. Well, suddenly maybe a $10,000 project becomes a $5,000 project, or a $30,000 project becomes a $20,000 project. Obviously, this isn't necessarily the tool for the six-figure project is going to be blazing fast now to implement. But to me, I'm saving somebody days of effort and research, and so my price point was $1,000. And I bundled it with launch support, with the ability to opt into escalated support tiers, L2, L3, production support, etc. For my first case, and this is where I began to go wrong, it became a consultative sale about how could we offer customization from the out-of-the-box experience to meet some specific business requirements of that customer. And I probably should have said from the get-go, that's all on you. What you see is what you get. And it's $1,000, but I promise you will get to launch. That's probably what I should have done. And really, this whole document, which I'm more than happy to share, it can probably be improved. It can probably be made a little more turnkey. So I'm just ask me, and I'll share the Google Doc with you. Was that the pitch was for $1,000. We'll install the site template for you in the hosting environment of your choice. I was even going to do it on his weird little VPS, but we said, no, look, platform.sh at the time is going to be a fairly affordable option for you to get started. I'm happy to tell you how that works. 2 months of launch support. So while he is building the site, I'll be on call. Anybody from my team will be on call. Yeah, here's where you need to go look to find the answer to that. Here's how to use Layout Builder. It's great, whatever. customized site maintenance manual, so literally an ebook that was proprietary, custom to his environment, to how to care and feed your Drupal site, the update processes and things that you have to be thinking about when you're operating. It's basically just our best practices distilled into a simple how-to manual. And really, again, this was a loss leader for us, but I wanted to try it. I just wanted to get some points on the board. And so like 1 month after we began talking to this prospect, he said, yes, I'm ready to move forward. This sounds amazing. I totally get it. And I said, all right, I'm proposing a session for Vienna. And then like the next week, he's like, wait, what am I buying exactly? And then the questions started and the long phone calls started. And I probably spent, I think, around 20 hours or so on the phone and in email conversations trying to help this customer, who was a small merchant, a representative really of a small merchant, comprehend what it was that I was selling to him. And it just kind of devolved from there. And there were a few issues here that were on me as well, because part of the problem is, to me, this is an experiment. It would be the least lucrative project I'd ever sold in my life. And so, of course, if I had any opportunity to chase a real project for us, this took the back burner, so the emails started to drag out and so on. But it really was like a lot of questions I did not anticipate, and a lot of missed expectations, like thinking that I was going to provide a custom theme for $1,000. It's like, no, let me show you how Layout Builder works and how color selections work. That's what I'm selling you. And so what I realized was that, one, I have this phrase later on in the slide. It's like I had sold him too much, more than he needed, more than he knew even existed as something he had to think about to launch an e-commerce site, even if he knew he didn't want SaaS. But it also wasn't enough, because for him, this price point of $1,000 plus a modest customization budget was substantial. Because this is somebody who's comparing even a $6,000 awesome Drupal Commerce website that's exactly what you need, built for you by the guys that wrote it. He's comparing that against the cost of his free time. So $0. And so it just it was a weird mismatch that I didn't expect, because of course I'm a Drupal guy and an agency owner, and I'm just looking at it from a very different perspective. I should have anticipated that. It took far too long to get to know. In the end, we got to know very recently, mercifully. I wish him well, and we'll see what happens next. His approach now is to basically let AI help him build the site. And all right, good luck. And maybe there's still an opportunity for us in the future. I would love it if Drupal Commerce and Commerce Kickstart were so simple that even ChatGPT couldn't screw it up. But we're just not there, and part of that would be lack of public documentation specific to the solution itself. Of course, Layout Builder isn't even the thing anymore. Eventually it's going to be Canvas, so all the past documentation and tutorials will be irrelevant anyways, which if you've seen Drupal 7 hook suggestions in your AI proposals, then you understand what Drupal means in an AI context. But I think that a better approach for us next will be to go fully hands-off, no consultation. Here's the price, and what you see is exactly what you're buying, which will demand more of me in explaining things up front. But just I'm going to cut customization as an option out of it, and just say, look, once you're up and running, if you're looking for a service provider, we'd be more than happy to support you. And hey, our customers get the first hour free, whatever it is. We'll still do the launch support, because I think the support is important for people actually being successful. Because if you buy a template for Shopify, you don't really have to think about how to set it up. If you buy a template on Webflow or whatever else you're using, it is a lot easier to get started than it is on Drupal, even with a site template, site template. So I still think there needs to be support, but everything else, I think we'll just have to be very hands-off, and I will clarify the difference, between me selling you a starting point for a customized solution that, oh yeah, I'm also going to help you build if you want, to say, no, I'm just selling a product off the shelf. I will be watching how this goes for DrupYard. I mentioned them earlier. They aren't selling full site templates yet, although I don't think it's a long lead time for them. What they are selling, though, are very advanced Drupal themes, so it's a design first sale at about a $500 price point. But there again, they're kind of doing what I thought, which is I want to sell something that what you see is what you get, and that's what you're getting from DrupalCon right now. It is a theme that might be built with a specific industry or purpose in mind, but it just is what it is, and they aren't trying to sell more beyond that. And as I mentioned before, we'll begin exploring private packages as a means of distribution, because again, I want it to be turnkey, where you click buy, you have access to it. Maybe it's even set up for you in one of the various passes with an API, and it's off to the races. So I want us to avoid that too much and not enough trap, if that even makes sense. It's like kind of how I try to think of the paradox in my mind of trying to oversell somebody something, but then because it was so substantial, they needed 100 more questions answered. Hopefully by the next time, we'll actually have that sale under our belts, and we'll have a success story to share, not a caution. So thank you for your time, everybody.